A young nurse donated her kidney to a patient, not knowing he was the lonely CEO. Millionaire. There's a saying that's been around for as long as people have been helping each other. It goes something like this: the hand that gives never loses. Most of us have heard it. Fewer of us truly understand it, not until life teaches us what it means. This is a story about a young woman who gave something she could never get back. And in return, she received something she never expected to find. Her name was Clara Reeves. She was 29 years old, with long brown hair that she usually wore down when she wasn't on shift, and warm brown eyes that had a way of making patients feel like they were being genuinely seen. Not just examined, seen. She stood maybe 5'4", always in her light blue scrubs, always with a small name badge clipped to her left side. She had the kind of quiet confidence that doesn't announce itself. It just shows up, steady and sure when it's needed. Clara had grown up in a small town in western Ohio, the kind of place where the neighbors knew your name and the diner on Main Street still had the same menu it did 30 years ago. Her mother had been a school nurse. Her grandmother had been a home caretaker for elderly folks in the county. Somewhere along the way, caring for people had become the family language, and Clara had learned to speak it fluently. She'd been working at Mercy General Hospital in Columbus for 4 years when everything changed. 4 years of 12-hour shifts. 4 years of holding hands, adjusting IV lines, charting medications, and staying calm when things were anything but. She was good at her job, really good, the kind of nurse that other nurses noticed and that patients asked for by name. She was also quietly going through something difficult. Her younger brother, Tommy, had needed a kidney transplant 2 years earlier. The family had rallied around him. Fundraisers, prayers, long nights at the hospital. He'd eventually received a donor kidney from a stranger who'd passed in a car accident, and he was doing well now, living up in Michigan with his wife and their little boy. But that experience had left something in Clara, a kind of awareness, deep and steady, about what it means to receive the gift of life from another person's loss. It made her think. It made her act. In late October of that year, Clara learned through the transplant coordination unit at her hospital that a patient on the 4th floor, a man in his early 40s, had been on the national kidney waiting list for nearly 3 years. His name on the board was simply D. Hartwell, age 42. She'd seen him a few times during her rounds. Dark hair, a short beard, the kind of face that might have been handsome once and still carried the echo of it, though it was now tired and pale, and carrying the weight of someone who hadn't slept well in a long time. He was quiet, polite but distant in the way that people become when they've spent too many months in hospitals and have stopped expecting things to get better. He never had visitors. That was the thing that stayed with her. Not one. Most patients had somebody. A spouse, a sibling, a neighbor, a co-worker bringing bad coffee and good intentions. But room 412 was always quiet. Every time she passed by, there was just the hum of monitors and a man sitting alone with the window, light falling across him. She started stopping in more than she needed to. "You need anything, Mr. Hartwell?" she'd ask. "No, thank you, Clara," he'd say. He always used her name. It was a small thing, but it mattered. One afternoon, she brought him a cup of decent coffee from the staff lounge, not the waiting room stuff, the real kind. He looked at it for a moment like he wasn't sure it was meant for him. "What's the occasion?" he asked. "No occasion," she said. "You just looked like you could use something that didn't taste like cardboard." He almost smiled at that. Almost. Clara had been tested months before, quietly, as part of a living donor program she'd signed up for after Tommy's transplant. She hadn't told her family or her co-workers or anyone else. She'd just gone in, filled out the paperwork, given her blood, and waited. When she learned she was a compatible match for a patient on the list, she sat with it for 3 weeks before making her decision. She prayed on it. She talked to her mother, who cried. She called Tommy, who went quiet on the phone for a long moment and then said, "Clara, you've always known something the rest of us are still learning." She agreed to the donation. She did not know when she signed the paperwork that the recipient was the man in room 412. The surgery went well. Both surgeries, actually hers and his, performed on the same day by teams who communicated through walls and corridors, without either patient ever meeting the other. Clara came out of recovery sore and groggy but stable. She spent 5 days in the hospital herself, which was a strange and humbling experience for someone used to being on the other side of the call button. One of her fellow nurses, a woman named Deborah who'd worked Mercy General for 20 years and had seen just about everything, brought her flowers from the gift shop. "Yellow daisies. You're either the bravest woman I know," Deborah said, setting them on the windowsill, "or the most stubborn." "Can't it be both?" Clara said, and this time it was she who almost smiled. 3 months passed. Clara healed. She returned to her shifts, quieter in some ways, more certain in others. She didn't follow up on what happened to the recipient. That wasn't the arrangement, and it wasn't why she'd done it. She'd done it because Tommy was alive, and because a stranger once gave without knowing who they were giving to, and because sometimes the most important things we do in life are the things we do, without any expectation of return. It was a Wednesday in January. Gray sky, bare trees, the kind of morning that Ohio does very well. When she walked out of Mercy General after her shift and found a man standing near the entrance. He was wearing a coat, dark wool, and he looked better than the last time she'd seen him. More color in his face, steadier on his feet. It took her a moment. "Mr. Hartwell," she said. "Daniel," he said. "Please." He was holding a small envelope. He extended it toward her, and when she hesitated, he said, "It's not money." "I know better than that." Inside the envelope was a handwritten card. She read it there in the January cold, while he stood quietly and let her. "Clara, I was told by the transplant team, after much deliberation, that you consented to be identified. I've spent 3 months trying to figure out what to say to someone who gave me something this enormous. And I still don't have the right words. But I've learned, maybe for the first time in a long time, that the right words aren't always the point. Showing up is, thank you for showing up for a stranger who didn't deserve it. Daniel." She looked up from the card. "How are you feeling?" she asked, because that was always the first question, and some habits are good ones. "Better than I have in years," he said. "Genuinely." She nodded, he nodded. "Would you want to get a cup of coffee?" he asked. "A decent coffee, not the cardboard kind." Now this is where a different kind of story might rush ahead. It might skip to the romantic part, the dramatic revelation, the moment the curtain pulls back and everything gleams. But real life doesn't move like that. Real life moves the way these two people moved, slowly, carefully, getting to know each other over cups of coffee on Wednesday mornings, and then Thursday afternoons, and then weekend walks through the park when the weather turned, talking about small things, and then gradually, gently, larger things. Clara learned that Daniel Hartwell had built a technology company from nothing. Started in his 20s with a second-hand laptop and a good idea. Worked until there was nothing left of him to work with, and arrived in his 40s with more money than he knew what to do with, and not a single person in his corner. His parents were gone. His marriage had ended quietly 6 years before. He had colleagues and he had employees. And he had a big, quiet house that echoed when he moved through it. He had been lonely in the most complete sense of the word. Not just alone, lonely. The kind of lonely that hides behind productivity and busyness and closed doors. He learned that Clara had known loss and worry and the particular exhaustion that comes from caring for others day after day, year after year, without anyone always asking how she was doing. They were, in their different ways, two people who had spent a lot of time giving and not much time receiving. By the following autumn, the park walks had become a regular thing. So had the Sunday dinners, sometimes at Clara's small apartment, sometimes at his house, which was slowly, room by room, starting to feel less like an echo chamber. He never forgot what she'd given him. She never let him make it the whole story between them. "You're more than a kidney, Daniel," she said one evening, and he laughed, really laughed, in a way that she suspected he hadn't in a very long time. "And you're more than a nurse," he said. "Well," she said, "we're agreed then. There's no perfect ending to a story like this, because real life doesn't deal in perfect endings. It deals in ordinary days that, when you string them all together, turn out to have been quietly extraordinary." Clara still works at Mercy General. She still stops in rooms where patients are sitting alone, and she still brings decent coffee when someone looks like they need it. Daniel still runs his company, but he goes home on time now, and the house doesn't echo anymore. What Clara gave Daniel was a chance to keep living. What Daniel gave Clara, without planning to, without knowing it, was a reminder that sometimes the person you give to most freely turns out to be the one who was waiting, all along, to give something back. If this story touched your heart the way it touched ours, we'd love it if you gave it a like and shared it with someone who might need to hear it today. Leave a comment below. We read every single one, and your words mean more than you know. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next story. We'll be right here waiting to share another one with you.